Hello and welcome into another fantasy hockey video. Today I'm going to give you my predictions for who will finish in the top 10 for defensemen in point scoring leagues for fantasy hockey. Do keep that in mind, not a categories guy, a points guy. Before I get into that though, thank you for subscribing to the channel. If you subscribed recently, the totals have been going up a lot lately, and I really appreciate that. Do consider subscribing if you haven't yet. There's like 12 or 13 other videos you can watch that could help you with your fantasy hockey draft. I do recommend that. Let's get into it though. The first guy on my list is Rasmus Dahlin. And any guys who you think should be on this list who aren't, leave a comment asking why. I'll give you my reason. Rasmus Dahlin gets into here. Last year he was 14th amongst defensemen in points per game. A little bit of a typo there. I meant to do points per game last year, not points. The power play unit got bolstered with the addition of Taylor Hall this year. It has Sam Reinhart, Jack Eichel, and upcoming sniper Victor Olofsson on it. I think that unit should be pretty good this year. I think Dahlin should take the step up this year. He's only 20 years old, so sky's the limit for this guy. He's gotten over 40 points in both of his first seasons and first two seasons. I really just like this kid as an offensive weapon and expect him to be in the top 10 this year. I just think in the lower half because he probably still will be a little bit less consistent than some of the guys above him. We then go into number 9, which is Neal Pionk, who's probably a guy a lot of people don't know a lot about. But if you followed the Jets last year, you know about Neal Pionk. 12th in points amongst defensemen last year. It was his first year as a true power play quarterback. He was splitting in New York with Tony DeAngelo. Tony DeAngelo, another guy who doesn't make this list but could possibly be deserving of a spot in this list based on what he did last year. He's only 24. He still can improve on his game, Neal Pionk. And I think just a power play unit he runs is too loaded for him to not get top 10. He was top 10 last year in my league, and I think he should continue that. They have Patrick Laine, Blake Wheeler, Mark Scheifele, Kyle Connor. It's such a good unit that Nikolai Ehlers, who is a deserving power play one guy on most teams, isn't here. And last year, Neal Pionk was third in power play points. I expect another solid year out of Neal Pionk and another good year and another top 10 year. We then move into Dougie Hamilton, who would have been top 10 last year had it not been for that injury. Last year he was 4th in points per game amongst defensemen on the power play with rising stars like Aho and Svechnikov. Had 14 goals in 47 games and would have challenged Werenski, who also didn't make this list, for being the top goal scorer amongst defensemen. I just think Dougie Hamilton was having his best year last year, and it's sad that his knee injury happened, but I think Dougie Hamilton should pick up where he left off, and I don't think he's going to be the top 5 defenseman he was when he got injured, but I do still expect him to be a top 10 defenseman, assuming he plays the whole year with health. We then go into the next two guys were not in the top 10 last year because they played together, and we're going to go into the first one here with Morgan Rielly. Morgan Rielly is going to benefit from Tyson Barrie being gone. He's on a first power play unit. He will be running this year the majority of the time with Tavares, Matthews, Nylander, and Marner. And depending on how much time he plays with this unit, which I think will be a good amount, he should be top 10. I mean, he had 70-something points the year before they added Tyson Barrie. I'm not saying he's going to get to that level again, but he should be closer to that than what he was last year. Which last year he had 27 points in 47 games with only 7 power play points, which is still pretty good considering he wasn't running the power play the majority of the time. It was Tyson Barrie, but they did split a decent amount of time on that unit. Ranked 22nd in points per game last year when he was healthy. That power play unit time should put him in the top 10 in my opinion. And who knows, you could get yourself quite a steal with Morgan Rielly in this year's draft. Another guy who's going late. I think this guy's reputation got tarnished a little because of 1 year in Toronto. Last year he was 23rd amongst defensemen in points, 39 points in 70 games, 12 power play points. He's going to be on the first power play unit with McDavid and Draisaitl. That power play last year was the best in the league with 29% conversion rate, which is very high. I think second was in the 24% range, I should say. And you're adding Barrie, who is an upgrade to their power play unit, which has rising guy Kyler Yamamoto, and along with Draisaitl, McDavid, Nugent Hopkins is solid. I expect Barrie to be in the top 10, and I think anything less than would kind of be showing that Tyson Barrie is not a very good power play quarterback, which I think just isn't the case. I think he is, and because of him being a good power play quarterback, like he was with Colorado, playing with McDavid and Draisaitl on arguably the best power play unit, I think Tyson Barrie should find his way into the top 10 this year. We then go into Victor Hedman. We then go into Victor Hedman, spoiler for number 4, it's Roman Josi. We then go into Victor Hedman, who finished 3rd amongst defensemen in points last year. He would be in the top 3 this year, but I think the 2 rising stars who I'll get to later are just going to pass him up and leave him at 5th. There's no shame in that. 5th is still pretty good. This is why Victor Hedman was in my video for bust, not because he's a bad player, just because he's going as the first defenseman off the board, and I think in points leagues he's probably going to finish around the 5 mark. 55 points in 66 games last year, which was very good. 22 power play points. The reason for drop to 5 is the emergence of Quinn Hughes and Cale Makar. Kucherov is going to be out most of the year, and I think Sergachev could steal some more power play time from him than he did last year. All those reasons is why Victor Hedman is 5th and not 1, which I think is pretty fair considering what Victor Hedman's done throughout his career. He's still good enough to overcome all those obstacles to be a top 5 defenseman. We then go to Roman Josi, who finished 2nd in points among defensemen last year, 65 points in 69 games, 23 power play points. One of the best offensive defensemen in the league, but a lot of people probably don't give him the respect he deserves because he plays in Nashville, which they haven't been the best of the last year or two. They were in the Cup final not too long ago, though, and expect Roman Josi to replicate last year or at least come close to what he did. I have a tough time seeing him finishing outside the top 5. Best player in Nashville, hands down, and ignore that spelling error of Jose instead of Josi. We then go into number 3. Rising star Quinn Hughes finished 4th amongst defensemen in points as a rookie, 53 points in 68 games last year, 16 points in 17 playoff games. Really put on display why Quinn Hughes is an elite offensive defenseman last year. Vancouver power play should only be better with him and Pettersson improving. They're very young. 25 power play points last year for Hughes. He could improve upon that if it was a full 82, but hopefully he can be one of the leaders in the power play points total for defensemen this year, which I expect him to. He is that good. We then go to John Carlson. John Carlson is probably the best power play quarterback in the league at the moment. Only defenseman above a point per game last year, 1.087 points per game. You don't see that too often nowadays. Usually only 1 or 2 guys does it a year, if any, but I think you have the chance to see 2 to 3 guys do it this year. In my top 3, I think all of them have the potential to. I think 2 will, maybe 3 will. 3 straight seasons for John Carlson above 68 points. He's on the power play unit with Ovechkin, so he's probably going to get a decent amount of assists just from Ovi being a century gun. John Carlson is just an elite defenseman, and he should be a shoo-in for top 5, and I'm going to put him at number 2 because I think he is that talented. Cale Makar is number 1, and I don't think people necessarily will argue with Cale Makar having the talent to be the number 1 defenseman on this list. I think people may argue with me that I may be doing it a little bit early, considering I think he's the 4th or 5th defenseman off the board in fantasy drafts, but I think he will end up being the number 1 defenseman for fantasy purposes in the league this year. He's playing on a unit with Rantanen, McKinnon, Kadri, and Landeskog, which is pretty solid. And Nathan McKinnon's a top 5 player in the league. Rantanen is probably going to finish top 20 in fantasy as well. Landeskog, apparently, according to reports out of Colorado, and if you check my bust video, wink nod, go check that out. He's not playing on the first line this year, but they expect him to still be on the first power play unit, which could change. But either way, Cale Makar, I think, is the most explosive defenseman in the league when it comes to offensive purposes. This guy can turn nothing into something real quick. He was 3rd in points per game at defense as a rookie last year. I see no reason why Cale Makar can't finish as the first defenseman here, and I think he's got the opportunity to on a Colorado team that is going to score a lot. And as I said, I just think he's the most explosive defenseman offensively in the league. I think he will finish as the number 1 defenseman, and that is my list in the top 10. Now, I didn't include Pietrangelo. I don't think he's going to be on the first power play unit. I believe that's going to be Shea Theodore. He fell out. Brent Burns, I think, is just getting a little older. Expect him to fall out. Torrey Krug was a tough one to take out of the list, but I think he might have a little bit of a gelling process at the beginning in St. Louis to the point it might just bump him out of the top 10. Tony DeAngelo, I almost put in the top 10, but I could see Adam Fox challenging him for some power play time, so I ended up not doing that. All of those guys should be top 20 defensemen, some maybe in the top 10, but just guys who in my brain, I was just like, I like these other guys a little bit more. I'm sure I'll get some of these wrong, and I will go back and look at this video at the end of the season to review my picks. That being said, that is the video. If you like my videos and you like my fantasy content, hit the subscribe button. If you like the video, hit the like button. It gets it more recommended. And with that being said, I will see you tomorrow for my video on my predictions for the top 10 forwards. Have a good Sunday. Enjoy the football, and I will see you later.